Hello, people. Welcome to my channel, Black Pride, Challenging the Narrative. Today, we are going to talk about city of Boston and Bostonians. Gotta love Boston, baby. So, what's the real cost of living in Boston? What's the real cost of living in Boston, Massachusetts? Do you ever think about that? Well, the city of Boston, Massachusetts, is well known for its role in the American Revolution, but this charming historic Port Town is now stuck in the past. Once they used to be called Cradle of History. The city's newer nickname today is the Hub of the Universe. It's more apt as the Boston claimed the fastest growing jobs market in the country. Many of these jobs are in the city's main economic sector of government, finance, technology, and medicine. Therefore, Boston is also high on list of the country's most educated cities. 22% of the residents hold advanced degrees, and that's no wonder, as Boston is home to 35 colleges and universities, including Harvard, MIT, Boston University, and the Northeastern University. Living in the hub is not cheap. Boston is among the most expensive city in the US, according to the NOMBY's cost of living index, which factor the cost of consumer goods price including groceries, restaurants, transportation, and utilities. Boston's steep price point earns its score of 88.27 out of 100 in July 2020. New York City is the index benchmark for the most expensive city with a score of 100. When you add rent to the calculation, Boston's score actually goes down to 81.87, meaning that the total cost of the living, including housing, is nearly 20% less than is in New York City. So, according with the payscale.com, PEG's Boston cost of living is 48% higher than the national average. Luckily, jobs in Boston pay well, with an average salary that is comparable to those in New York City. Housing rental, for example. Let's talk about housing rental. Prices for rental in Boston prices are the third highest in the country, after San Francisco and New York City. In January 2020, Boston's average rent was $3,462, more than double $1,462 nationwide average. It sounds high consider that it's nearly $500 less per month than Manhattan, New York, average rent of the $3,995. Consider also monthly rent have remained steady or even declined slightly over the past 2 years. So, South Boston tend to have the highest average rent. Nearby neighborhoods, Back Bay, Beacon Hill, and South End are also among the most expensive for bargain Boston housing. Check out the neighborhoods of the Madison, South, Dorchester, Hyde Park. I live in JP. Whether you rent or own a home, remember the factor utility bills into your monthly housing cost. If you live in Boston, utilities will cost about $170 per month for one person in an average size apartment like mine. Even if those numbers should sound high, living in Boston doesn't have to be out of reach. Co-living with roommates allow you to spend significantly less, and then the average cost of the solo housing, for example, bungalows average price for a private room in a share home in Boston are up to 45% less than the rent of the average studio apartment in the same neighborhood. Alright, let's talk about housing. Home purchase. If you want to buy a house, prices are high. Okay? It's very expensive to own a house in Boston. The housing market in Boston area is just as competitive for real estate as is for rentals. In the city of Boston, proper single-family home prices have reached a median purchase price of $644,000 in January 2020. The city's suburbs are highly desirable as well in the greater Boston area. The median single-family home price is nearly as high as in the city limits. In Boston, $650,000 will buy you about 1,200 square feet property. Taxes in Boston are a reasonable 1.06% of assessed value. Okay, Boston home prices are similar to other major cities, including Washington, D.C., and San Diego, both of which have median price around $650,000. The nationwide median price is $234,000. The only city that makes Boston home look affordable is San Francisco, where the median home price is $1.35 million. And food costs in Boston. Food costs 24% more in eastern Massachusetts, which includes the Boston metropolitan area, than in the rest of the nation. This makes it one of the most expensive places in the country to eat. Okay, Boston expensive. The average person in Boston should budget around $349 every month for food. If you are dining out, expect to pay between $15 and $40 per person, depending on the type of restaurant. These prices are on par with the most expensive culinary destinations in the country, like New York, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. Sales taxes in Boston do not apply to groceries, that's good, but do apply to restaurants. Meals adding 6.25% to the total bill. Okay, so transportation, transit. Let's talk about transportation, transit. The streets of Boston were paved when horse-drawn carriage was the main mode of transportation. That means it's a great city for walking, but many streets are not wide enough to accommodate the traffic and parking needs of a modern city. So parking is expensive in Boston. Metered parking spot costs from $2 to $3.75 per hour, but can be difficult to find on street. Residential parking permits are free, but likewise limited in availability. Monthly garage parking costs from $135 to $530, depending on the neighborhood. While expensive, this is comparable to other major cities and slightly more affordable than parking in New York City. In the last year, gas prices in Boston have veered relatively closely to the national average over the same period. But when it comes to car insurance, Boston drivers pay less, as low as $859 per year versus $1,427 for the rest of the country. Bostonians can save money by taking the T. The city's popular and the nation is first. Subway. The T is part of the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, which I use it a lot, because I want to save money, which also run buses, trolley, commuter rail, and ferries. Bus fares are low at $170 transit card, and one-way subway tickets is $240. Commuter rail tickets start at $240 and go up to $13.25. Spending on the destination for $90 rider can get a monthly pass that's good on all form of public transit, including central commuter rail trips. Boston public transit system is among the best in the country. That's good, especially when it comes to accessibility and convenience compared with similarly busy transit system. Boston all-inclusive pass, good on all form of public transit, is more affordable at $90 per month than San Francisco is $98 and Washington D.C. is $121 plus a month. Okay, let's talk about average salary. So from the lowest to the highest earners, Boston is a good place to work. Minimum wage in the city is $12.75, significantly higher than the nationwide minimum of $7.25. For our workers in the Boston metropolitan area, the average hourly wage is $32.39, which is 30% higher than the nationwide average wage of $24.98. The average salary in Boston is $77,000 per year. This is very close to New York City average salary of $76,000. Considering Boston is slightly lower cost of living than New York, this means that the same salary in Boston will have just a little bit more purchasing power. San Francisco is the only U.S. city that pays more than Boston, with an average salary of $97,000. With a booming job market and highly educated population, Boston culture is increasing year over year. Its price tag increases too much. If you are considering a move to Boston, Massachusetts, make sure to reconcile the city cost of living with your personal budget, okay? Bungalow offers private rooms in shared homes that are more affordable than solo housing options in the same neighborhood. Wi-Fi, utilities, and monthly cleaning are set up before you move in, so that co-living in a seamless and like other shares housing options. Bungalow vets all residents and helps you match with roommates who share your living preferences and interests. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff we can do in Boston, and I love Boston, and this is the best ever, best city to live with. Okay, it's the best city to live, and thank you for watching. Please share this video. Share your opinion about this video.